Welcome to an introduction of coaching progressions. A coaching progression is a series of statements and questions that keeps the conversation or the coaching progressing. It's that simple. But a coaching progression is valuable. Let me tell you why. So often when people get trained in coaching, they'll learn different questions that they can use. And I cannot tell you over the last 20 years how many times I've heard people say, well, geez, I used your third-party question, or I used your self-actualized question, or I used your behavioral-based rating question, and it didn't work. And I said, what do you mean it didn't work? Well, the person was still pretty resistant. The point being is they've made an assumption that one question was going to be the cure-all, and it's not. Let's go back to some fundamentals. Coaching is an art. It is not just a science. Number two, you control 50% of the equation. That's you. You do not control how they respond. Can you craft different questions and progressions to make sure the conversation is positive, upbeat, open-minded? Absolutely. And that's where coaching progressions come into play. So let's take a hypothetical employee, Charlie. Charlie is struggling with time management, but Charlie has a lot of really good strengths that his or her boss really appreciates. So let's take a simple approach. Charlie gets called into the office. Charlie, we're really struggling with your time management. It's got to improve. You need some help. We're frustrated. And they give the typical set of constructive feedback. Now notice what I just did. I didn't acknowledge. I didn't allude to any of Charlie's strengths. Here's the funny thing. In the book, The Progress Principle, it's reported that people reach their most motivated state 76% of the time when they're progressing, when they're getting better at their jobs. The only way that can occur is if we acknowledge what they're doing well. The Gallup organization reports people will engage 8 times more when we lead with their strengths and constructive feedback. Yet, my earlier example is typically what happens with a lot of leaders. Now, what if we brought Charlie in and said, Charlie, here are 2 or 3 areas that we have really appreciated your growth, how much you've improved, and we think about taking that same work ethic and applying it to improving time management. What goes through your mind? Charlie answers, how do you think we should do that, Charlie? He answers, why do you think this would be important if we're successful, Charlie? He answers again, tell me a little bit more about where you feel like you have an opportunity to improve time management or where you're potentially struggling. What's another area you're struggling? That's what a coaching progression is. In this progression, it's a what question with 2 drill down questions, how and why. And then it's expand the conversation. Tell me more. What's another? And we call that widening the road. That's a coaching progression. If you go into your conversations, not with one question, one and done approach, and you think about progressions to keep the conversations going, not only will you learn more, but guess what? They're going to learn more. They're going to become much more willing participants. And it does something magical. As theatrical as that sounds, it builds trust. See, when we ask more questions and dive in and inquire thoughtfully and professionally, we show that we care. But when we ask one question and stop and show frustration non-verbally, we push people away. Let me know your thoughts.